Mike McCarthy says that Rico Dowdle is officially RB1 in Dallas. What does that actually mean? We'll break it down on this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And it's a special guest. It's Aisha Morrison. Follow her on Twitter at Aisha Morrison. Also check her out at All City Dallas. We are going to answer your Twitter questions today. And Aisha, let's get started with this Rico Dowdle stuff from Mike McCarthy, because yesterday he announced that Rico is the workhorse running back moving forward. My question to you is, why did it take so long?
Oh goodness. Are we answering this football wise, or
Well, I mean, anything. Go ahead.
It's a 30-minute show, so let's try to keep it underneath that.
All right, I'm gonna try to keep it short. But no, I mean, I think there's some seniority that took place there. I think there was some, I don't know, there was some, it seems like there was some contention there, specifically in this running back room in general. So I think it's, and also too, I mean, it's hard to deny the difference that you see on film and the productivity and, you know, some of the missed lanes and stuff like that. Like, you have to look at what Rico has been able to do when he's on the field. And there is a difference when he is on the field in his production. So I just think you just get to a point to where it's undeniable in a sense. And you're trying to also instill some hope into your team. I think to make that decision at this point in time, it feels late. But for what they need right now, needing a little bit of a spark, I think is good for him. And he can further his career by having this opportunity too.
Landon.
Yeah, I think this is Jerry Jones, man. Like, I'm not the one to usually kind of specifically blame Jerry for this stuff. I think a lot of times there's collective decisions that Jerry is a part of that he maybe defers too often to the people that he listens to. I think that the common perception with Jerry is that he's a hammering down type of owner, when in reality I think he likes to get a consensus and get opinions from folks, but not on this situation. I think this one's Jerry. I think it explains so much, including why the Cowboys even signed Zeke to begin with, right? Like, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, look, if we want to examine this and go all the way back, I mean, I think you and I certainly, many others as well, have a lot of right to speak on this, because honestly, I've been saying that Rico Dowdle is the best running back on this team since the end of last year too. Like, if you remember, Pollard was injured and still not playing well, and Dowdle was the better running back then. So I think that this idea, that was the kind of the basis of the formation of our idea and theory that 100% Rico Dowdle should have been running back one going into the offseason because of what we saw in 2023 from Rico Dowdle. So to me, like, not only is this a long time coming, I have to believe that the coaches have been fully aware and seen this. And this is also based, you can confirm this too, of what we saw in training camp. I mean, it was very clear who the best running back was at training camp as well, right? So I have to believe that this is a force that is above the head coach, that is telling him that he wants to see a little bit more of these other guys. And again, I am not lightly saying that, but I just cannot understand any of the evidence that's presented to me that points to any other direction at this point.
So I think Mike McCarthy really did want to go into the season with a running back by committee approach, right? Like, I think because Rico is a fairly young player in terms of NFL experience, they probably didn't want to overload him with work. So they thought the best way to kind of ease him into this role is to have a running back by committee approach, at least in the first 2 months of the season. And I think running backs by committee work. Look at Detroit right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got the best RB by committee in the NFL. Even Baltimore has Derrick Henry and Justice Hill, who fit really well together. The problem is that approach doesn't work when you only have one NFL running back. And unfortunately, that's all the Cowboys have with Rico Dowdle. Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook just aren't those guys. They refuse to use Hunter Lipke on more than a few touches a game. And Deuce Vaughn is, frankly, Landon, I'm not even sure why Deuce is on the roster right now. But it just feels like at this point, it's so clear who your best running back is that you kind of have to go in this direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think this is one of the most painful, decisions that we've had to deal with, because this has just been so clear and so obvious for so long.
Teeth. Yes, pulling teeth.
And the truth of the matter is that, with the offense struggling the way it did all throughout the whole front part of the season, like the fact that they took so long to kind of face the obvious, I mean, it's borderline malpractice, right? So I think if anything, we've had some issues with the way that the McCarthy has coached this team. I think he hasn't gotten a lot of credit for a lot of the good things that he's done for this team, including some of the ways that we were critical about the way that they handled some of the offensive line stuff. And a lot of that ended up working out very well. And we were wrong, right? And about playing some of these guys. I think that the way, and I don't know, like, again, I think that this is a Jerry thing. But it's not reflecting well on his head coach right now, because, there's something that's so obvious about the talent pecking order of this running back room that it seems like everybody except for the Dallas Cowboys themselves were able to see up until this week.
Aisha, I want to ask you, like, we've got 8 games. Oh gosh, that seems like a lot. 8 games left of this season. What do you need to see from Rico Dowdle over these next 2 months in order for you to view him as like a long-term option for the Dallas Cowboys?
I mean, honestly, just for him to continue to do what he's been doing. I mean, I think he's shown some of the things he can do in the receiving game. He's shown you some of the things he can do in the screen game. I think that he showed specifically last year how he was willing to be in pass pro. And obviously he's running hard. Like, there's intent in how he runs the ball. And you see that he's starting to get a feel, and he's reading defenses as they're giving him some options, some cutback options and stuff like that. So for me, I just think just give him the opportunity. And honestly, guys, we're at this point too in the season where it's like a good coach is going to let you go put your best film out there to go make yourself some money, whether it's here or whether it's somewhere else. So I think that whatever he does is going to be about him, and whatever he needs to do, I'm excited for him. Knowing the player, he's waited for this opportunity for a long time.
Landon, what do you need to see?
I think what we've seen from Rico that has made him better is that we've seen the game really start to slow down for him.
Yes.
Right? It's like he's not running full speed up into the back of his guard anymore. He's letting the holes develop. He's seeing the coordination between himself and the offensive line in a way that he hadn't previous to this. And all of that, in my opinion, is due to experience, right? Getting more snaps with the offensive line, getting more snaps on an NFL field. I think this is what's helping him kind of unlock that ability that we've kind of see in very raw spurts at times, right? So I think Aisha's right. Like, you want to just see more, right? You just want to see more games, more opportunities, and then to see him kind of internalize that even more, see the game slow down a little bit. I mean, now we're starting to see him in that Eagles game. He's breaking tackles, right?
Yeah.
He's hesitating in the hole, and he's getting a good angle on the guy. He's running through arm tackles, and he's weaving his way through the offensive lineman, understanding where they're going to be in 2 steps, not where they are now. And I think that those are all things that if I continue to see growth in that realm, I mean, I think it was Joey Ikes, our buddy, who's been calling for it for a while. The Cowboys should be kind of quietly whispering in Rico's ear already, like, hey man, you want to sign like again, Joey Ikes gets all the credit, like a 3-year, $10 million deal. It makes sense to me.
He'd want to after this fiasco, because that's a whole nother side of things.
That is a good point.
Is this
here's what I would say about
marriage that's made to last? That's a good question.
I will say this about it. One of the things that I want to see from him is just to stay healthy for the next 8 games, because that's been the biggest knock on Rico, not his talent. It's his inability to stay on the field. So I think if you're a Rico Dowdle who has kind of struggled with health issues, Three-year, $10 million deal after being an undrafted free agent who didn't play really the first 3 years of his career. Might not look too bad. Let's move on to Trey Lance, who I know Cowboy fans are just chomping at the bit to see. Will we see more of him on Monday Night Football? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. But with Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says it's $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. It's $15 a month. So say bye-bye to all those overpriced wireless plan, jaw-dropping monthly bills and unexpected overcharges. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at only $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on a nationwide 5G network. Ditch the overpriced wireless providers and go with Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for only $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That is mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $150 and get $50 in bonus bets guaranteed. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. This is a fantastic week of NFL action. We've got Steelers-Ravens at 1 o'clock Eastern on Sunday afternoon, then Chiefs-Bills later on in the day, Sunday Night Football, Bengals and Texans, and Bengals and Chargers, then of course Cowboys, Texans, Monday Night Football. Go to FanDuel.com to join today. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. An official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We've got a special guest, Aisha Morrison, here from All City Dallas to answer your Twitter questions. And Aisha, let's talk about Trey Lance, who played like 5 plays last week against the Eagles. Do you think we will see more of him this week against the Texans?
I think a lot of it is contingent on how Cooper Rush plays. And I think if you see what we saw from Cooper Rush next week, it might be one of those things because, the argument is at least Trey is mobile and can add some of those things. In regard to the Trey Lance thing, guys, I listen, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Like, one thing about me is, like, I get, like, we have to talk about this, and this is, like, I don't know, just a point of conversation. But I will say, like, particular with him, I take this conversation very seriously because I believe this is a pivotal point in his career. Mm-hmm. I think this whole thing, whether he plays or not, is going to allow him, not only the league to get information, the Cowboys to get information, but himself on what he needs to do going forward. Because this being this many years in and still being at this juncture where you don't know what he is, he doesn't know what he is, it's a very delicate thing. And I think his career is like in this whole thing that we have going on. So for me, I'm not saying, like, me saying I want him to play is totally for him and figuring out, him being able to figure out, do I need to pivot? Do I need to make decisions about my career? Or am I just on an uphill battle? So anyway, whether he gets to play or not, I'm hoping that he does, just because it just is what it is. But if Cooper Rush comes out and performs okay, just keep him in. You got to keep your guys inspired. So that's what I got. Sorry.
No, Layla, I want to ask you this. There's been a lot of talk on Twitter, Blue Sky and whatever social media apps that you're using, about what is the benefit to the Cowboys playing Trey Lance? Because obviously they're not going to be a playoff team this year. He's an unrestricted free agent after this year. So is there anything to gain for the Cowboys by playing Trey Lance this season?
I'll flip it around on you. What's the benefit of playing Cooper Rush? I mean,
Well, then that's the thing. Yeah.
That's the thing. Is there benefit
it.
to maybe winning a game here and there when the reality is you're probably out of the playoffs and the goal is to try to win a Super Bowl? Like, I'm not necessarily for tanking, but I'm not necessarily, for the idea that you should be doing everything you can, including avoiding, observing younger players and giving them the opportunities in order to win when it's kind of a fruitless effort at this point. I think here's my take on winning in the NFL real quick is that I think it's hard to ask NFL coaches, NFL players to intentionally lose. I think people that talk about teams tanking, I think that's not a realistic thing. This is not the NBA. They don't do it like that. You can't play the game at this level that way. Now, what you can do is make detrimental personnel decisions that can intentionally lose you the game, including playing a potentially volatile young quarterback who is as likely to throw a 30-yard touchdown pass as he is a 5-yard interception. So I think that there's benefits to the Cowboys, potentially having some element of who knows what's going to happen. That actually has benefit in the season when you're already looking at a lost year. And again, like I just don't see the benefit of playing Cooper Rush to timid offense, to uninspired losses. This is not a situation where you're trying to get through a game to win. This is a lost season where your quarterback's out for the year. You're not going to make the playoffs. I understand that everyone on the NFL, on the team and in the coaching staff has to continue to try to win because some of them are on contracts and they're not going to want to give up. So you have to make decisions like at a GM level, which this won't happen, to kind of do things to look out for the future of your franchise. This is kind of what I talked about too, is like the idea that McCarthy would want to continue to play Cooper Rush is not surprising. I mean, he's playing for his job. It's the GM's job to come in and decide, hey, this is not what's best for my franchise long term. We need to play Cooper Rush, for these reasons. So yep. I understand why they won't necessarily do it. And frankly, even I'm looking back on why Cooper Rush even went into that game. It sounds like it probably was just because, not Cooper Rush. The reason Trey Lance went into the game is probably because Cooper Rush hurt his neck in the middle of the game. So I don't even know that we even got I don't even think it was as inspiring as we thought it was, where, oh, look, they're trying to get Trey Lance in the game. I think it was strictly a situation where Rush hurt his neck. So I feel like it's less likely we see Trey Lance unless there is an injury, or at least not for a couple games until the wheels really, truly kind of fall off this thing.
Aisha,
Mm-hmm.
do you think there's any chance that Trey Lance could put together a string of games over the next, let's say he doesn't play a lot against the Texans, but over like the last 4 weeks of the season, that would be good enough for either the Cowboys to want him back as a backup or for some other team in the NFL to sign him to some sort of lucrative contract? The reason I ask this is because there are a section of Cowboy fans out there that want to comp pick for Trey Lance. And then there's another section that thinks there's no way it's going to happen. I just want to point out, back in 2022, Baker Mayfield was a scout team defensive end for the Carolina Panthers. I'm not making this up. He got cut by the Panthers, went through waivers. Nobody claimed him, and his salary was nothing. Goes to the Rams, plays a game on 3 days' notice against the Raiders, and that's basically all he did. Rams picked up a 4th-round comp pick for Baker Mayfield after he signed with the Buccaneers. Is there any chance that could be Trey Lance with the Cowboys?
Is Brian Schottenheimer calling the plays?
Maybe. I mean,
that's actually a maybe. We don't even know at this point. Yeah. It certainly could be more
because to me, if you do decide to do that, the philosophy has to change. Like I think you almost have to go to like a college type offense.
Sure.
And funny enough, like if you listen to Brian Schottenheimer's pressers, he's talking about the things that, you know, we as Cowboys fans have kind of been asking for more of within this offense in general. So for me, it's like, if Mike McCarthy's calling the plays, I don't see it because it's not catered to the RPO play action game. But if it's maybe Brian Schottenheimer, who I think has a good idea of maybe how to use someone like Trey Lance, I could see them being able to, especially too, Marcus, with how the defense is. The defense last week just needed the offense to give them something.
Yes.
I think you would have been in that game. And you're going up against the Houston Texans offensive line this week. That is worse than the one you saw last week. So I think this Cowboys defense later in the season is getting some people back, but also learning the system and how it works. You see guys getting comfortable. I think you could squeak out two games, maybe with a Trey Lance, if the system was right. But I don't know, dude. I'm sorry.
I think you're right, though. If they're going to Trey Lance, I have to completely change the system. And it's probably not a thing that you can do in the second quarter of a Monday Night Football game. Like, you're going to have to install this over multiple weeks. And again, maybe as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, and it's become more evident that the Cowboys aren't going to make the playoffs, maybe we see that change. But I tend to agree with both of you guys. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Trey Lance just doesn't play at all on Monday night. And I think Cowboy fans are going to be pretty upset with
Real
that.
fast. Mike McCarthy is also in his last year, like we've mentioned, and he's going to want to win his way, right?
Yes.
Like, so I don't know that he's going to want to change his whole offense up for his, you know, final salvo of trying to save his job here. So I think that even further dampers the idea that Trey Lance will get snaps.
All right, let's talk about Jonathan Mingo, the receiver that the Cowboys acquired at the trade deadline. What will we see from him on Monday Night Football? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend your time more wisely? Well, listen up. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, and the Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, and discussions, or just kick back and enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. For your second listen, go check out the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day, one in the morning with Tyler Rowland, one in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, our last question here comes from Mark. He wants to know, what can we expect from Jonathan Mingo, the Cowboys' newest receiver, on Monday night? Aisha, what do you think?
It will be different if obviously he has been playing football. So I would assume he is in like game shape and stuff like that. I don't know. I could see him run a couple slants, you know what I'm saying? A little something, nothing too crazy. But no, what I'm looking for personally is someone that evaluates. I just want to see his body. I just want to see how he moves. I just want to see how he carries himself in the game. I want to see how he is in the blocking game if they use him in special teams. I'm just really paying attention to his movements and also to where they place him. Because I think that'll give us some information on how they view him. I know you guys both covered the draft. I didn't think this was a bad player. I think he needed some development. But I do think with the right coaching, he could be a legit piece in an offense if he is able to get some confidence instilled in him.
Is this the right coaching staff, Aisha?
Absolutely not. We don't even know these people. What are you talking about? Like, no. We don't even know if they're going to be here. And I do think that Prince has done a pretty good job, but he's a specific body type that I don't even know if we've seen here in a long time, because he's considerably bigger than any X type of receiver we've had here in a minute. He's a dude.
He's a big guy. Landon, what do you think?
Yeah, I think likely what they'll do. I mean, this is a yak guy, right? Like, so
Yes.
likely what they'll do is they'll probably give him a very limited package of plays to kind of start out, and let's let him focus on that. I agree with Aisha. Like, I think slants, you're going to see over route stuff. Maybe you'll see some kind of 9 route stuff, but I honestly think you'll see more across the field stuff, like we were just mentioning. He's a big body. Let's get him the ball on the move and let's see what he does with it. Maybe you'll see some of the jet sweep stuff, some reverse stuff. Opportunities to get the ball in this guy's hand and having him run to the secondary. That's what the Cowboys have, in mind for him. I think without a full offseason of him, being put into into the system properly, learning the offense, I don't know that they're going to feel comfortable with him, like, knowing all the checks and all the changes and everything that can happen out there. But I think that if you have a very simple set of plays, you design some stuff to him, get him the ball, in some space, that's going to be the opportunity to see kind of the best of what you've got in Mingo. And then if you want to develop him as a, 3-tool wide receiver, that's something that's probably going to have to wait until the offseason.
So I was lucky enough to go back and watch all of his targets at Ole Miss, thanks to PFF last night. And one of the things that you'll notice is most of his production came from being a vertical slot receiver, where a lot of play action and the quarterback was hitting over the linebackers, but between the safeties. Unfortunately, that's where Dak Prescott excels, and not Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. Yeah. So I really wonder, you're going to see a very bare bones offense, routes from him. Where you're right, Lane, probably a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of things just to get him the football. And I think he's fine in that area, but he's not Deebo Samuel there. I think they have similar body types, but he's actually more of a downfield threat receiver. And it's just unfortunate because I think we're not going to get a really good sample here over the next eight games as what he can do with backup quarterbacks.
I have a question though. So the Cowboys, and because you guys just mentioned his usage and going over the middle behind linebackers and stuff. I'm not saying it because he's not that size, but that sounds like some tight end stuff.
Almost, yeah. Honestly, it was a lot of the same type of routes that a vertical tight end would run. It's not too dissimilar.
Now, and what I'm saying is that you haven't got anything from Schoonmaker, really. You haven't got anything from Brevin Spanford. Is this guy going to at least allow you to do some 12 personnel stuff and actually be a threat? I don't know. I was listening to y'all, and I'm just like, okay, we need a bigger body that can do some tight end-esque stuff at this point. Maybe he does some.
I think in the future, the idea is that he could certainly operate in those realms that tight ends do. And that's kind of, if I remember a little bit about Lane Kiffin's offense, is that he does that a lot, right? Where he has a lot of these plays where he changes who's running which route, And so ultimately what he was doing with Mingo is just kind of putting him in sort of the traditional Y locations and then having him almost running those kind of, except the deeper versions of those routes. I just don't know that that. I mean, first of all, like you said, the Cowboys haven't had success throwing to that position so far this year. And honestly, I would throw Jake Ferguson in there. They haven't had a lot of success with Ferguson either. So I don't know that they're going to suddenly start having success throwing to that part of the field with their backup quarterbacks and Mingo going in there. I think they just have to keep it very simple with this situation right now, because again, you've got inexperience at the quarterback, inexperience at the wide receiver position. To me, the only kind of common language that you're going to understand is simple routes like slants and overs and stuff like that, and stuff that kind of plays to his. And I don't disagree with you too, Marcus. Deep, a 9 route is an easy route to run, right? You could do that. So I certainly think that they'll have him run those routes, but also like Marcus said, it's going to be more difficult to kind of complete that stuff because you don't have your starting quarterback.
The future. So
what we're hoping to see is maybe he gets 3 touches, and one of those touches is a big game, a relatively big game. Just show us some flashes of the athleticism to get us through this offseason where we can be excited. That's it. That's all we're hoping for, is just a couple moments over the next couple of weeks. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. You can go check out the channel on YouTube, download the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow Aisha on Twitter at Aisha Morrison. Check out all of her great work with our guys over there, Jeff Kavanaugh, Jesse Hawley, Clarence Hill. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. We'll see you back here on Monday to get you ready for Cowboys Texans on Monday Night Football.